Welcome back. Today we're going to start a new unit, but before we start the new unit, let's talk about the accounting cycle the way we know it now. First of all, we start with business transactions, and this is what we learned in the earlier units of the textbook. We learned how to journalize into the journal and then post into the ledger. We learned how to create a trial balance, which is proof of the mathematical accuracy. Then we learned to prepare financial statements. And then when that's done, our new accounting period begins. So that's the state of the accounting cycle at the moment. Now, in order to prepare financial statements, we need to be aware that we create a trial balance, and from the trial balance, we only take the assets, liabilities, and capital accounts to prepare a balance sheet. And we only take the revenue and expense accounts to prepare an income statement. This brings us to Unit 9. A new tool called the worksheet. When we finish this unit, students will be able to demonstrate skills necessary to complete a 6-column worksheet, which includes the trial balance and the financial statements. They'll be able to prepare an income statement based on all the work done on the worksheet, and a balance sheet will also be able to be created. So what is a worksheet? At the end of the fiscal period, it's very busy for most businesses and the accounting people in those businesses. They must prove the mathematical accuracy of the general ledger by preparing a trial balance. And the trial balance then allows them to prepare the 2 financial statements, the income statement and the balance sheet. However, an aid to help avoid errors and help organize accountants has been developed, and this is called a worksheet. So what is the worksheet? It's a document that organizes the accounting data required for preparation of the financial statements, which are the income statement and the balance sheet. This is the official definition that will be required on any subsequent tests. This is not part of the accounting records. A worksheet is only a tool. It helps the accountant get organized and put everything in one place. It helps the accountant discover and eliminate errors before they become part of permanent records. And it provides an overall picture of the accounting process to assist in the preparation of the income statement and the balance sheet. All this information is in one place. The worksheet is part of the accountant's working papers. So let's take a look at what a 6-column worksheet looks like. First of all, we have what we call the trial balance columns. Notice that there is a debit column and a credit column underneath the trial balance title. Then we have the income statement columns, and there is also a debit column and a credit column for the income statement. And lastly, we have the balance sheet columns, which, like the previous 2, has a debit column and a credit column. Now we will talk about the steps in preparing a worksheet. As with other documents that we have created in the past, we need to have a heading. The who, the what, and the when. Notice that we have the name of the business, the type of document that this is, which is a worksheet, and in this case, we put the when as for the month ended, and whatever the month end happens to be. Step 2. We take the information from the trial balance that has been prepared, and we transfer it to the first 2 columns, the trial balance columns. All the debits go in the debit column, all the credits go in the credit column. At the bottom, we have a total of all the debits and the total of all the credits, which matches what we have on the trial balance. Step 3. We then take the balance sheet items. Now remember, that's only your assets, liabilities, and equity accounts. And we transfer those values from the trial balance columns to the balance sheet columns exactly the way they are. Step 4. We transfer the income statement items, which, as you know, is only the revenue accounts and the expense accounts. exactly the way they were on the trial balance columns. We complete the income statement section next, which means we total everything up. We total the debit column and we total the credit column. Now please note that the two totals will not be the same because we have to account for whether we have a net income or we have a net loss. Now in this example here we have the credit column of $13,240 and the debit column $10,790. So the credit column is greater. That tells us that we have more revenue than we have expenses. Therefore, it's a net income. And this value you might think would be put underneath the credit side, but it's not. It's put under the side that has the lower value. And that is, so once we total up all the debits along with the net income, we will have the exact same total as we have in the credit column. So the 10,790 plus the 2,450 will give us 13,240 in the debit column, which is the exact same number that we have in the credit column. Step 6, we complete the balance sheet section, which has the same features as in the income statement. We total up the debit column and we total up the credit column, and in this case we notice that the debit column is greater, 246,830. The credit column is 244,380. The difference between those two is the net income. But in this case, we put it on the credit side because the total of the credits is less than the total of the debits, and in order to make them balance at the bottom, we need to put the net income in the credit column. So now we see at the bottom that we have a balance for both columns of $246,830. Step 7, we now rule the worksheet. Notice that we have single lines above where a total is about to occur, which tells us that adding or subtracting is to occur. And then we have double lines to show that a total has been reached. Your assignment for today is to complete exercise 2 on page 175, and we're going to do this together, so I will help you with this assignment. So open up your textbook to page 175 and your workbook to page 85, pause the presentation, and then start it again when you're ready. So for exercise 2, you're given the trial balance in the textbook for M. Odawu. So we're given this trial balance, and we see all the different accounts that he has as of April 30th. Now in preparing the worksheet, we have to prepare the header first, which is the who, the what, and the when. So M. Odawu, this is a worksheet, and for the month ended April 30th. Step 2, we take the information, all the different account values from the trial balance, and we put them on the worksheet. So please write down all these values that you see on your trial balance and put them on your worksheet, including the totals. Pause the presentation and do this in your workbooks now. The next step is to jump over to the balance sheet and transfer all the balance sheet accounts, your assets, your liabilities, and owner's equity, onto the balance sheet section. Pause your presentation and write these numbers in the balance sheet section of your worksheet. Step 4 is to transfer the income statement items. So these are the revenue accounts and the expense accounts. Pause your presentation and write these on your worksheet. Step 5 is to complete the income statement section. So this is where we determine if there is a net income or a net loss. In this example, the total of all the debits is $3,000 and the credits $8,000. So the credits are greater, which means that our revenue was greater. So we have a net income of $5,000, which is the difference. We total up all the debit columns, so 3,000 plus 5,000 gives us 8,000, which is the exact same total of as the credit. So we have 8,000 for both. Notice 3,000, 8,000, That gives us a net income of 5,000. Our total at the bottom of each column, 8,000 and 8,000. Step 6 is to complete the balance sheet section. So we total up the debit column and credit column. We get 12,500 for the debits, 7,500 for the credits. The debit side is greater. That tells us that we need to put the net income, in this case, which is 5,000, on the credit side, and this will make both the debit and the credit columns equal. So we have 12,500 for the total of the debits, 12,500 for the total of the credits. So this is exercise 2 completed, a completed worksheet. Now we have to make sure that all our underlines are in place. So we have to rule the totals, making sure that there's a single line above the total and a double line below it in all these cases. Your next assignment is to, on your own, complete questions 1 to 6 on the web page and exercise 1 from the textbook on page 174, and it's to be done in your workbook. These are short assignments, and you should be able to get this done very quickly, and then we will go on to the next assignment, which I will give you shortly. Please pause the presentation now, and then when you're done, come back to the presentation. Now that you've done that first assignment, we can see that the accounting cycle has changed. Now we have all the other items that I spoke about earlier, but we have a new item, and that is the worksheet that you can see circled in this diagram. So after the trial balance, we prepare a worksheet, and based on that, we can more accurately be sure that our financial statements are correct. Now, how do we record a net loss on a worksheet? This is a little bit different. The first examples that we did were only with net income. So how do we do net loss? Well, if we take a look at this example, we can see in the example that our debits are 83,000 and the credits are 75,000. So the debits mean we have more expenses than we do revenue. So that means we have a net loss of $8,000. That's the difference between 83,000 and 75,000. We write net loss under the account title, and then we write the $8,000 under the credit side of the income statement and under the debit side of the balance sheet. And this will ensure that our totals at the bottom of those columns are equal. So we now are able to prepare our income statement. The information that we have in the worksheet is transferred over to a formal income statement, as we see here in the diagram. We take this information from the income statement. We take a look at the debit column, we take a look at the credit column, and we determine that we have net income. If we have a greater debit column than we have a credit, then we have a net loss. The net income or the net loss must be shown on the formal income statement. So we see in this example that we have a net income of $2,450. We prepare all the income, all the revenue accounts, all the expense accounts, and then we have a net income at the bottom, as you see here, of $2,450 in this example. Similarly, we take all the information from the balance sheet section of the worksheet and we apply it to a formal balance sheet. In this example, we have all the assets, the liabilities and the equity accounts, and we complete a formal balance sheet based on the balances in those particular accounts. The information from the balance sheet section of the worksheet helps us prepare the balance sheet. Any net income or net loss are applied to the owner's equity. And we prepare the report form balance sheet. Notice that net income or net loss, in this case it's a net income for November, is applied to the owner's equity calculations in this balance sheet. Your assignment is to complete questions 7 to 12 on the web page, exercise 3 in your workbooks, and case study 2, which is also available on the web page.